Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me for this week's edition of the SMIE Consulting Midweek Roundup. It's Wednesday, January 26th, 2020. Oops, no, it's Wednesday, January 28th, 2026. And today we're answering three questions that we've been hearing from international educators over the last 7 days. Sorry for about that. I'm lost in time somewhere over Asia, coming back from Nepal. So just arrived back from South Asia on Monday afternoon, and that'll be the focus of our first question today. Spending a week in Nepal and talking about that market and how it's changing. And but before we do get into the questions, as we do each week on the roundup, we take the questions that we answer here from our newsletter that comes out on Monday mornings, and that's called All the SMIE News Fit to Share. And the most recent edition came out on Monday about 9 a.m. Eastern if you subscribe via email. And I'll drop the link to our website, smieconsulting.org/subscribe, where you can find one of two ways to subscribe to the newsletter. Either through the email subscription link, you fill in your details, and we send that out to you every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern. The other option is via LinkedIn, if you prefer to get your international ed news that way. That newsletter comes out typically 8:30, about a half hour earlier, 8:30 a.m. Monday mornings, so that you can get get your day off, get your week started off right with all the hot takes on the news of the day. There are four main sections in that newsletter. There's a social media news, which can cover everything from how social media is being used internationally, AI, webinars, digital reports, blogs, all those kinds of resources that you can access that help inform what you do on the digital side for international student recruitment. And then also, second section is it's the central section, News Central, talks about the high level legislation that's been passed, news stories of new state legislation and federal pending lawsuits, and how those are evaluated or resolved through the courts, to any national news in the U.S. that impacts what we do in international education. So we talk about travel bans, all those kind of questions, and more. Then final section, or two other sections, Solution Central, where we can focus on some positive ways of adapting current circumstances to answer problems or challenges we're facing. And then finally, a Global Roundup. And we have this Global Roundup as part of our newsletter because one of the things we struggle with in the United States oftentimes is getting our heads down and doing our jobs and focused on our students at hand, but that we don't necessarily step back and look at the larger picture of how we are missing opportunities to potentially get our messaging to the right students on the right channels in the right formats. So all of these things are what we talk about, and with the perspective we talk about through that global roundup really helps you get a sense of what's happening in other major destination markets that are trying to attract international students. We know we're not alone in terms of the big four receiving countries in terms of dealing with changes to government policies that impact immigrants and students, international students from coming, in terms of post-study work opportunity, housing, all of these things that impact our international students during their journey, choosing which countries to apply to, all of that, visa availability, all of these kind of things. So that's a piece that we cover in the Global Roundup, provide that perspective of what's going on in other major markets so that you're aware of that misery does love company, and knowing that there are other countries in other universities like ours in overseas destination markets are struggling with some of the same issues we are. Maybe not as severely, maybe more severely, depending on where they are in the world. So having that perspective is always an important part of how we should be approaching our day-to-day jobs. So let's get to our three questions today. First up is, what is the Nepali student market like today? And as you know, I work for the University of Akron as the Director of International Recruitment and Engagement, and have been doing so since, since January of 2025. So it's been very much a part of my life in the last year. Certainly we're undergoing some staffing changes. Our vice president for enrollment management has just left last week, so we're potentially looking at a reorganization of how we do international on our campus, because right now it's in a few different locations and all the relevant pieces, English language programs, all of that. So these are the kind of things we're looking at and what that might be for us moving forward. For those who don't know me, we at the University of Akron, we've been working with our main international partner InUni since September this year, past year, and they've taken on management of all of our agent partnerships that pre-existed, and they have their own network of agencies. They have people on the ground in probably that will be representing us in at least 7 or 8 countries. In key markets, they might even have 2 staff members directly representing us to visit and do all the events that we need to meet with applicants, all of these kind of things. So these are they're our main recruitment provider, and when I travel, it's typically internationally. It's typically going to be for InUni related events they're putting on for me. So it's a great benefit. We have our own agreements with them for 5-year contract for them to be recruiting for us, and they are basically sole provider in that we're doing, and anything that comes to us organically is gravy. But the bulk of what our recruitment will be moving forward will be through certainly any one that we're spending dollars on will be through InUni. So I was in Nepal for a good 6 days of activities from the time I first got there Tuesday afternoon last week till Sunday. We had a couple meetings before I left. We had pretty much constant interaction with agency partners in market. We had a massive launch event on Saturday this past weekend where we had almost 100 agencies that were already partnering with InUni for other ventures that are now recruiting for Akron as part of their portfolio. Talking to them about all of our programs, talking to them about our international student services in terms of our purposeful dedication to academic enrichment experiences, experiential learning for students before they graduate, scholarships that we have at the undergraduate level, multiple grad STEM programs that can be done in a year and allow students 3 years paid work after they're done if they get that first job. All the kind of benefits of an institution like Akron. So what we do when we are in market, when we do affairs, do events, that they're taking that message, they're amplifying our message through their network and through their BDs and through their on-the-ground representatives in countries, major markets from South Asia to Southeast Asia to Northeast Asia to the Middle East to Africa and Latin America. They have representation in all those regions, representing us, University of Akron. So, for example, this week I was in Nepal. We have, it's one of our top 2 applicant producing countries for InUni so far. We met with the agencies that have recruited those students to Akron that are in the pipeline now, most of them for the fall. We're obviously all this next available term for new internationals at Akron. So we had opportunities to talk with the agencies that are meeting with them. Our BD got to know where those students are at the different agencies so that she can do the one-on-one follow-up. So opportunities to help hear the concerns of some of the agencies, the main representatives, but also in almost half of the agencies we met, getting to have time with their students. They had groups of students that meet with me so I could talk specifically about Akron and our admissions process, our programs, all the different things we do for our international students on campus. Those opportunities are gold, recruitment gold, when you have that kind of dedicated time with an existing partner and they provide you the opportunities to really connect with their students one-on-one and in small groups. So very positive time at almost every partner that we visited. I would get the kada, that scarf that they versions of red scarves that they give honored guests who are coming for presentations or to meet with students. So some really heartwarming interactions. I've been traveling to Nepal for about 10 years. Obviously my old friends at Education USA, Priyani Shah, who's still there. getting to connect with her at the Youssef Center in Kathmandu certainly made those are the kind of meetings when you have those with people that you've been working with for years, that really remind you why you do what you do. And in almost every case, it's not all unicorns and butterflies in Nepal. I was originally going to be visiting back in September after right after my India visits, but because of the political situation there, they had the Gen Z revolution that burned out some government buildings and one prominent Western hotel that's still under repair. Just has a big shroud over it, the Hilton in Kathmandu. But some of the government buildings are still not fully operational after being burned out 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago. So I didn't certainly feel any times I was unsafe. So as a place to go, Kathmandu certainly is fully open for business. There were around a few government buildings. There were some soldiers with potential riot gear that looked like they were there, but certainly none of the places I was going during the day or events at night did we have any issues with potential protests or violence. So certainly knowing what's going on the ground is very important to have in the back of your mind. I was originally going to be going. One of my next trips was going to be to the Middle East, going to Jordan and then maybe Iraq. But looking at the travel warnings, it's still level 4 for Iraq, so that's off the table. So I'll just be spending a week in Jordan next for my next adventure. So really looking forward to that. Haven't been back in Jordan for almost 20 years, 18 years probably. So looking forward to getting back to one of my favorite countries to visit in the Middle East for sure. But what I found in Nepal is the questions came up at almost every partner we visited about the visa situation. Because right now, students are getting visa appointments, but the denial rate has spiked dramatically. Some were saying as 10 to 15% approval rate for visas in Nepal. So there's some real frontline concerns about why that's happening. What we did learn from our conversations with Priyani at Youssef in Kathmandu, Education USA basically, they in their conversations with the consular officers, the process is basically every student, since social media vetting is now part of the process for visa applicants, that in Nepal, it's all being done manually, and they don't do any of that until after the student comes for their visa interview. So what every applicant is basically getting is a pink slip, and most of those pink slips are for it's not a no, it's not a 221G either denial. It's basically we need to review your social media, or you got to make sure they're all set to public, again putting any notes in there, and then only after that happens, that doesn't mean the student has to make another appointment. It just means it's a paperwork decision on the consulate's part, embassy's part. So once they're done with it, they let the student know. Then they bring in their passport and then hopefully get the stamp in the passport, and they're good to go. So the challenge is that the students being denied at a higher rate, and they asked what they could do, and we talked through the worldwide challenge we often see is that students get really nervous for that interview, and they think that they think it's a test. They think they gotta memorize all their answers to what they think are going to be the questions that are going to get asked. And then when questions don't get asked the way exactly that they prepared, then that throws them off and it makes them even more nervous, and they mess up and answer a question with an answer that doesn't answer the question that was asked. So it's those tend to be the main reasons, and students that can fix their nerves, can rethink through what was asked and how they can respond better, and going multiple times. There were stories of students who would go 3-4 times before that they were consistent. They consistently improved what they were doing, whatever that was asked, and that there was an issue that they would fix, and eventually their stick-to-itiveness, their perseverance paid off, and they got their visas. So we are unique in a lot of ways. In every other country, major destination, you don't have an in-person interview. It's a paperwork decision, basically, whether you get visas, and that sometimes leads to long delays. But in the U.S., so sometimes it's an opportunity to really have the individual student show why they should be getting a visa. And ultimately, that's probably the hardest thing for someone coming to an education system that is so dramatically different than anything they've experienced before, where being able to have a conversation in a second or third or fourth language will determine whether they get a visa. And that conversation being able to demonstrate authenticity is really what will define a student's individual success. The students that can treat it more as a conversation, can prepare to have that conversation as if they were having a conversation with a teacher or a friend, the better the results will be. When they can clearly articulate their whys of why they chose a particular major in a particular school, what's the actual connection with that institution that they're really looking to sink their teeth into, or is why they chose that particular college, what their plan is when they're done, and to be able to articulate and talk about saying not just I'm going to come home, because in Nepal that's the major issue is are they ever going to come home? That having a well thought out plan for what that looks like is part of the deal. So yes, and be able to talk about the opportunity to do OPT, and even STEM OPT if it's available to you, that makes a big difference, because that shows if you've articulated and said, hey, I have, because when I graduate, if I'm taking a STEM program, I will be able to work for up to 3 years. That's practical experience and funding that can help me bring that back home and then start my own business, or meet a need in the country that's currently not being met, that I can take over the family business and move it in a new direction if that was on the cards for their plan when they came home. But to be able to have that conversation at a very high level with a visa officer is what can really move the needle. When you have that plan's well figured out, that they know things that are unique about the institution or the department they're going to study in, or the faculty member in that department that is, particularly if they're looking at grad studies, as to why they're applying to that program, that there's that kind of connection that they have academically with a professor who shares their interests, to have that articulated plan for what they're going to do when they come back, and then also to be able to, this is kind of a unique situation for Nepal, because they have to be able to articulate, since they don't review bank statements at the embassy, and they haven't done for over 10 years now, that the students, as potentially 17, 18-year-olds, need to be able to talk effectively about what their parents earn, their kind of work that they do, where their investments are, all of that kind of stuff, because that's how in Nepal they make a decision to assess financial affordability or availability, financial funds available to support study. So that's the challenge in Nepal, is the visa situation more than anything else. Being able to have that conversation in English at a high level, to show that they're authentic, to show that they've done their homework, that they can articulate why they chose a degree, a university, a department, why they chose how they're going to pay for it, and how they're going to, what they're going to do when they come back, and what that looks like, and how they're going to have that plan when they finish their studies. Be able to articulate their needs when in response to specific questions that might not be what they're originally answering, or think they're going to have to answer, is the real crux of the issue for any student in any country around the world, but particularly in Nepal. All three of those questions need to be answered satisfactorily at a level that perhaps might be above what's required in other countries, because of the black and white nature of finances in some countries is not the same in Nepal. So that's what's happening with the Nepali student market right now. It's there. There's still a lot of interest in the U.S. It's becoming also increasingly a grad market, not to the level that India is perhaps, but for our in-uni applicants from Nepal, it's about anywhere from 2/3 to 3/4 undergrad, 1/4 to 1/3 grad. So it is becoming a bigger grad market. One of the things we were told is that graduate students that are admitted who don't have any funding have a less likely chance of getting funding from the university, will have a lesser chance of getting their visa approved. That's based just on anecdotal stuff we're hearing from agent partners. So that's one of the takeaways I would just keep in mind if you're looking to expand into that country as part of your overall overall recruitment. So let's move on to our second question of the day. And this is one that is as problematic for folks who are mid-level international admissions recruiters or even SIOs, having the ability to manage change at your institution. And God knows this past year has been all about the change, and certainly a lot of different issues that we're facing that we would never have thought we'd have to deal with in our careers. But I certainly want to share some advice I've had, and I just posted a link to a story from Nepal from our visit last week, and we just want to make sure that that you have a chance to see what we actually did and our big launch event that we had, so you can see that. But managing up is one of the most underappreciated skills we need to have in our roles, because when we've been through what we've been through in the last year as international educators in the United States, with the almost constant torrent of bad news or legislative change or executive orders or bans that get put in place that impact the lives of our current students, SEVIS terminations last year, all of those things, and the visa pause we experienced at the end of May, the beginning of June, the social media vetting questions that were now being enforced, all the different the potential threats that are coming down the pipe in terms of the elimination of DS and potential threats to duration of not only DS but also to OPT if that's on the chopping block too. So those are the two big things we have to look forward to this year, or freer this year. But there's a lot of change that we are experiencing in our day-to-days that we haven't had to experience since the pandemic, and certainly in terms of legislative action since probably post 9/11, in terms of the direct impact government actions have had on our ability to recruit students. So what does change management look like on your campus internationally? Who is responsible for communicating up the chain to senior leadership about what the latest challenge of the day is, what the opportunities are for potential new directions to compensate for new markets you might be exploring, to compensate for the loss of access to certain markets. We know half of Africa is now off the books for recruitment travel. We know at Akron we're particularly going to be hit by direct Nigerian student applicants coming, other West African nations that are also under that ban, Senegal, Cameroon. Those are the places that we now have to think about. Are there other countries we need to be investing time and energies in? Certainly we're directing our main recruitment partner in Uni to look at the countries that we can and already have established student bases from that aren't on travel ban lists. We've talked to folks about more domestic recruitment and making sure our domestic staff, when they're doing visits at community colleges or international or schools that have international populations in some of the key metro areas, how do we better position ourselves to those students so that they're aware of what the opportunities are, even if they're in the United States from a travel ban country, that they can still come to us, all of that. So these are the kinds of things we want to really make sure we're exploring and communicating, that it's a very movable feast, that what's true one week could be something completely different after a couple weeks. So we've talked at length about how the linkage between trade deals and visa appointment availability is very real in this administration, so that until certain changes happen between India and the U.S., between the U.S. and China, are we truly going to see those opportunities open back up? Those are the two number one and number two markets, India and China, but they have very fragile relationships right now in terms of politically, economically, and the interdependence piece of how our economies are connected. Is that going to be what brings the leaders to the table and say, yes, let's have that trade deal, and when that happens, then we can move forward with more liberalized student visa processing and make that much more attainable, so that we're still working towards that. But to have the conversations with leaders on campus, on obviously the immediate concern about, well, this travel ban now impacts any of our current students that are off campus and whether they can come. It impacts our ability to bring them directly from overseas now. That's now impossible if they don't already have a valid visa. If they're in the United States, we can still enroll them, but they're few and far between, and they may not be looking to stay because they're not going to have the ability to travel home again until they're done. So, or till the situation changes politically. We know Iran's on the list, we know Nigeria's on the list, we know Venezuela's on the travel ban list. But political situations can change in all those countries. In a year's time, could there be a stable government in Venezuela and Iran, and maybe a change in policy and leadership in Nigeria to allow for normal relations to be resumed or enhanced relationships to happen? So these are the kinds of things that there's short-term things, there's the longer-term vision things, so that well, this structural change to how that's coming that could affect OPT will make us a much less desirable destination if we aren't able to offer 3 years of work permission to STEM students anymore. If, for example, more countries get added to the travel ban list administratively, if DS is eliminated as an option for international students, that they have only 5 years total to finish their degree, and or 4 years, and if they don't finish their degree, they have to apply for special permission to extend at a time when USCIS, that processes all international student and other citizen, various immigrant statuses, they have staff to do all that paperwork when they're already delayed 6 to 8 months or more for certain types of status changes or program changes or CPT or OPT. All of that would necessitate huge administrative expansion of capacity in order just to maintain what they're currently able to do. If they have to, all students have to renew, can't change their status, or can't change their program, can't add a second master's. All of these things are potential huge problems for our industry in 2026. But are we communicating to our leadership on campus that these things might happen? Are you in a blue state? Are you in a red state? Are you in a purple state? As your leader, as a public institution, are there certain things that you can or can't do? We're learning week by week. Florida schools may be unable to use H-1B hires anymore in the future because of a change that's being proposed on their board of governors. In Texas, they've just announced something similar to limit public state institutions from using H-1B. So there are some very real consequences that are going to impact international education units on our campuses. That could happen in the weeks and months to come. Are we communicating the potential for these things? Are we rating these as how important will it be for leadership to know all of these things? Sometimes you have to spoon feed them a little bit. Sometimes it's a drip over time. Sometimes they need to be, if you never go to take the opportunity to have these conversations with senior leaders, but then you all of a sudden have 10 things you want to tell them, then as existential threats to what you do as an institution internationally, those are the kinds of conversations that if you throw them all at them once, they probably will freak out and go, why didn't you tell us about this earlier? Versus the opportunity to have these regular conversations, that there is a way that you're keeping senior leadership in mind when there are these major potential roadblocks or even opportunities that you want to take advantage of, by keeping that on the regular radar. And does that happen through weekly meetings with leadership, bi-weekly, whatever it is? Having that communication line open is vital to a university's overall success and health for an international education plan to really function well and to feel supported. So that change management piece, there's an article in TED that I've included, and a Pine News piece that's well worth a read in terms of a year of disruption, Trump 2.0, and for U.S. international education, and talks through some of the responses from the early executive orders and the deportations and the visa interviews, enhanced vetting, the travel bans, targeted policies, all of that. These are the kind of things we know. There are advocacy groups. We know about NAFSA. We know about the U.S. for Success Coalition. We know about all the other international ed organizations that might have advocacy efforts in terms of what they do with elected representatives. So every one of our colleges and universities has a government relations officer. Are you regularly plugged into with that person to go fight the fight for the institution's interests when it comes to some things like skills lists or potential immigration language that impacts costs for students or accessibility for visas overseas, all of these kind of things. Keeping our government relations folks, not only our senior leadership, but government relations folks in loop on the kind of advocacy that they can be doing to support what we do as international educators, hopefully, if that's part of the institution's mission. So last piece of the puzzle I want to talk about today is quickly about the UK. UK launched their latest international education strategy, and it raised a few eyebrows, to be fair, in terms of colleagues in the UK trying to navigate what this new strategy means for them. They've had a little bit of a rough year with the implementation. It actually hasn't been implemented yet until the next academic year, 26-27. The new international student fee levy that's going to be put in place. But the way the international ed policy, government policy, international education strategy, so it does have an ambitious goal of reaching $40 billion per year in annual education exports. What they don't include in this plan, that they've included in most every plan previously, is a numbers target by 2030. Previously, there had been a goal to get 630,000 international students in the UK, studying in the UK, but there isn't a hard number that's part of that. What is clear is the plan does not envision onshore numbers, direct recruited numbers to the UK to be the real growth area. They are expecting and encouraging universities to pursue their T&E initiatives even more than they've already done. So that's certainly something that we already know, that the UK is already the renowned expert on T&E in the world in terms of the amount of UK degrees that are actually awarded every year is greater for international students, is greater out for those that receive degrees outside of the UK than international students that get them in the UK on campuses in the United Kingdom. So we know that T&E is already part of what they do, but now they're being asked to ramp up their efforts and to really provide British education to students in countries that probably would never be able to come and afford studying in the UK, but to be able to do it at a more reasonable rate than they would otherwise be able to have access to. So UK is certainly reeling. There's from this, international educators are certainly left a lot, probably more confused because there's not a whole lot of direction and not a lot of indication of where additional funding is going to come to allow the T&E pieces to happen. So there's a piece of that is a lot of uncertainty, frankly, but the explicit direction to have institutions in the UK focus on T&E as opposed to direct recruitment, not in place of, but certainly in terms of growth areas, that's where they're expecting institutions to really see longer term benefits. So that's all we have for you this week on the Midweek Roundup. We will be back next week, first week in February, with our next edition of the Roundup. Until then, I wish you the very best, and remember to click subscribe and like and share, whether you're listening to this on repeat on the YouTube, LinkedIn, or Facebook channels, or if you are listening to our audio-only podcast that you can receive on all major providers. So definitely subscribe and share with your friends and colleagues. Thanks very much, and have a great rest of your week. Cheers.